quick question to Abebe. The last conversation we had earlier this year, you did speak at length about the trilemma and the policy complexities that countries were grappling with. In your assessment, how is the state of play 6 or so months down the line? Are we navigating it in the path that you would think is ideal, or how do you assess how the situation is evolving across the region?
Thank you, Julian. So I think, of course, as always, it's important to not overly generalize, and country circumstances differ across the region. But I would say we are about the same where we were in April, and indeed in some countries the situation a bit more difficult, given that we hadn't fully expected a third wave, of course, earlier in the year. So that has complicated matters, slowed economic activity in a number of countries. So the pressure, the need for pursuing the reforms that we've talked about in the past is very much alive in the vast majority of countries. Now, what are these reforms? They're very country specific, of course, but I would argue fall into 2-3 broad areas. I think the first one is, even before the pandemic, we saw a pressing need for countries to mobilize more revenues, instead of using debt financing, using tax revenues to address the many spending pressures that countries face. I think that need is very much even more pressing now, given that debt levels have gone up and spending pressures are even higher than before the pandemic. So I think this is an area where quite a bit of attention is going to be needed. Now, what exact tax policy changes are going to be needed is country and context specific, and of course something that is requires deep domestic political internal discussions. So but I think having a clear roadmap on how revenues can be mobilized over the medium term is going to be really very important in an increasing number of countries. Second, prioritizing spending will also be very important. Some difficult trade-offs there. One thing that I would highlight is, inequality we've seen has been going up. Pressures are going to be more still in the coming months from higher food prices in some countries, higher fuel prices in other cases. And I think more of a focus on social protection, more of a focus on trying to make sure that there is not excessive scarring from kids having had their education interrupted, what we can do to spend more to make sure that they can recover the education gains. That kind of a focus is going to be very important. So let me stop here.